The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Or just ignoring laws you don't like. I recently found an article where a gay man is basically complaining that businesses don't get to discriminate against him. To be more accurate, he's complaining that laws don't have loopholes so that people who don't like them don't have to follow them. And needless to say, with that as your underlying idea, you're going to write quite a train wreck of an article. His article starts by discussing a recent case in the UK where the owners of a bakery refused to bake a cake with a pro-gay message on it because it was objectionable to their Christian beliefs. If you're a gay man, you're now legally entitled to force a devout Christian to bake you a cake. Nobody should be forced by law to bake anyone else a cake. Ever. Now, the way the author has written this article makes it sound as though gay people are going up to random Christians on the street and demanding cake from them with the enforcement of the law, rather than from businesses which are required to follow anti-discrimination laws. And while not, of course, outright false, this is a rather disingenuous way to write this article. It's like if I said, whoa, guess what? Christians are being forced to drive gay people around in their own cars. When actually it's Christian cab drivers who are being forced to serve gay customers just like anyone else. That's a really different situation, and it's those kinds of key details that the author seems keen on glossing over in order to make the situation seem more inflammatory. He then spends 2 paragraphs arguing that this court case was a waste of resources. Are there no gay teenagers in Belfast who are being bullied at school? No gay adults with substance abuse problems stemming from the shame that was drummed into them by Christian parents? No Ulster churches even with leaking roofs? All of them might welcome a little help. But no. This money and effort was all poured into a squabble about a cake.
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
It's not about the cake. It's about establishing a legal precedent for service discrimination. Imagine if someone in the United States made this same statement about Rosa Parks. This time and effort was all poured into a squabble about one bus ride. During my adult life, English law has equalized the age of consent, established civil partnerships, and ultimately recognized gay marriage. All of these reforms were achieved by persuasion, principally by gay people exercising our rights to free speech and free association. We persuaded our families, our friends, and our legislators to change their hearts and minds. We persuaded them by the force of our arguments, not by the force of law. This is true, but the author is changing the subject at the end of this paragraph. With any shift in prevailing moral feelings, a majority of people are persuaded to a new position organically, which causes the laws to change to reflect this new prevailing morality. When this happens, the small section of the population that hasn't been persuaded is forced to accept this change under penalty of the new law. That's how it's always worked. For the changes the author likes, he's talking about how great it is that the majority was persuaded organically, but when it comes to this law he doesn't like, suddenly he's concerned about the stragglers who weren't convinced organically and how oppressed they are, a point he never seems to have made with any of the other legal changes he claims to support. And this gets into the author's main point, which he confusingly put at the end of his article. One day, the prevailing political consensus may change again. Our lawmakers may once again be tempted to turn against gay people. And on that day, I hope the Christian bakers will stand with me in my fight to protect fundamental freedoms that transcend any cake, any religion, and any daft law. It seems that the author is effectively arguing that all laws should be voluntary, just in case a bad law arises. Nope, don't try to argue against bad moral shifts before they become laws. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance? Pfft, nah, just stop arresting people if they don't want to be arrested. A world where personal feelings trump the law is effectively a world that has no laws. And that's a bad thing. Now, of course, there are many laws that I disagree with, but my solution is to fight to change the laws or to argue against the bad moral shifts that have informed them, not to call for it to be voluntary. But the real question for the author is, how far are you willing to go with this idea that a person should escape punishment because they disagree with the law? Would you also defend a Muslim doctor who refused to work with women because he'd have to touch women? How many laws are people allowed to break in the name of their religion, or even just their personal feelings, before you stop defending them? I mean, call me crazy, but in my opinion, you should never be allowed to break the law because, well, you feel like it. Now, the author does bring up the interesting case of Alan Turing. Alan Turing was arrested for having gay sex, which was against prevailing morality at the time, and as a result was against the law. And then fast forward to 2016, These Christians were arrested for refusing service, which is against prevailing morality and, as a result, is also against the law. What's the difference? If gay men today welcome the pardon for Turing and many others, why don't they support the Christian bakers too? Surely there is no difference in principle between Turing and the MacArthurs. Both are outliers at odds with the mainstream, trying quietly to live their lives in accordance with their beliefs, their consciences, and their inclinations. The thing is, Alan Turing's actions did not interfere with other people's rights, whereas these bakers' actions did. That's why people dislike the bakers and not Alan Turing. The modern prevailing morality, and the reason behind all these other legal changes that you like, is the idea that your rights end where mine begin, and that generally people should be allowed to do things as long as they don't harm other people. Okay, Venaloid, so if you went back in time, would you condemn Alan Turing because he was in violation of the law at the time? No, I would oppose his conviction because he wasn't actually affecting anyone else. But what's really important if I went back in time is that I couldn't get out of a conviction of having gay sex by citing my own personal feelings, nor would I expect to. If I went back in time and was charged with the crime of having gay sex, I would take that as an opportunity to challenge the law, but I wouldn't expect to get out of it just because I personally think the law is bullshit. If this kind of loophole existed, the next guy might get out of his discrimination charge, or his murder charge, or his treason charge, simply because he claims to have a personal or religious objection to that law. Gareth Lee, the Equality Commission for Northern Ireland, and indeed the Labour government which enacted these anti-discrimination laws, have all overlooked one very important principle, that no prevailing political consensus should ever deny a minority, even a minority of 2 bakers in Belfast, the right to disagree with it. What are you even talking about? They still have every right to disagree with the law. What they don't have is the right to a get-out-of-jail-free card with an approval stamp that reads, "Because I want to."